to France enjoying Ronan O'Gara. Ronan, happy Christmas to you.
Many happy returns, sure.
Joyeux Noël. What are the French traditions?
It's not like Ireland anyway. We were in Glasgow for the game, was it last week, and the French were a bit shocked by a lot of the Glaswegians falling over around lunchtime and enjoying themselves. It's very, very different in France. It's I'm gutted not to get home. I'd love to get home, but just coming back, I was training Stephen's Day at 3 o'clock, and there's a grave or strike in France. So all the transport is kind of cancelled, so it's too risky. When your title changes, if you're an assistant coach, you can kind of ring the boss and go, I'm struggling here to be on time, but it doesn't give a good message if you're the one that's late.
Yeah, no. And do your players get time off? Obviously, they don't if you're training on Stephen's Day. There's no...
No, they do. They do. It's good. That's why we have it at 3 o'clock, so people that have family spread throughout France. We played Bordeaux last night, and after that you could disperse straight away. So people drove to Paris or they drove to the south of France, and we don't have to be. We're not on till 3 o'clock on the 26th. So it'll give an opportunity to people that they won't have to travel on Christmas night either. They can get up early and go on the 26th.
Has this changed much from when you were a player, the Interpros? Was there always a game on the 26th for you guys, and did it always matter, and would you always have been forced to play at that stage?
But sure, that's you'd love to play, Ger. It's weird, people, I suppose, that aren't involved in professional sport. For the 26th, it's any day. You know, there was years I remember going kicking on Christmas Day because you just bought into that, you know, essentially Johnny Wilkinson work ethic, and it doesn't make you any better by going kicking on Christmas Day, but it's amazing the power of the mind and how that feels. If you go Christmas Day, it feels like, geez, I banged 10 sessions now because I went on Christmas Day, and that makes me so much better than anyone else. And what dedication to the cause. But actually, if you get your timetable right, you can actually take Christmas Day off. No, I think from going back to my time, sure, fellas were dying to play. It wasn't necessarily Stephen's Day. It was either the 27th, 28th, depending on, I suppose, what Saturday or Friday night fell.
That's funny you're talking about that, working on Christmas Day, because Austin Gleeson recently, the Waterford hurler, talked about how he wasn't going to enjoy Christmas this year the way he would have traditionally. He was going to get in and make sure that he was full sessions the whole way through the Christmas period, and so that he'd be ready for next year. It wasn't going to be like, I'll be grand, I'll make it up in January. And you know, a lot of people are critical of that, like, look, you just don't have your mindset right. You should be able to enjoy yourself over Christmas, and then come January, you know, manage yourself properly.
Yeah, it's such a great topic. I think our point of discussion, Ger, because for me, the drive in the GA players is phenomenal, and they're just so, you know what I mean, professional might be an awkward word to use among the GA, but like in terms of their drive, and as you say, it's easy for us to judge, but you can't dictate a player's mindset. It's his inner feelings that decide what he wants to do, and if that's what makes him tick, away he goes. He's only answerable to himself, and I think that's the fascinating thing about sport. It's you against you. It's not you against what other people think. I think the greatest battle is you against you, because it kind of ties in nicely with the free taker in GA or the free taker in rugby, and the fact that it's you against you. And it essentially comes down to how can you manage pressure. For example, pressure in rugby for a prop is very different to pressure for a 10, pressure for a line-out thrower, pressure for a back three player, because when it's your time to nail your moment, you've got to get that right. But it looks very different for a lot of people in rugby as opposed to maybe in GA. It's kind of similar to the fact that a lot of them are looking to hit it or kick it over the bar, while in rugby it could be actually the tight head getting up a little angle on the scrum that enables your 8-9 play to work down the short side, if you can follow my thought pattern.
Yeah, no, totally. It's different for all of them. But from your perspective, the Christmas Day sessions actually worked, it seems like.
For a while, Ger, but it was like, what does work look like, or what does that mean? You know, I think, you know, is it the fact that you go kicking on Christmas Day, does that add to your percentages from a kicking point of view? I don't think so. But I think it just rules out another potential route for an excuse in your own head. And that's, I suppose, the fascinating thing with it. When you're the kicker, you just kind of try to eliminate, and how can I sleep well at night? Well, if I do my work and I prepare to the best I can, then hopefully I'll perform at the weekend.
But you wake up Christmas morning, Ronan, and think, Wilkinson is out today. He's going to be at Kingston Park, or whatever the case might have been when he was playing for England. And if he's out there, I need to be out there.
Sorry, I never even said hello, Dave, and happy Christmas.
Good morning,
yeah,
sir. How are you?
You are spot on. That is exactly it, because, you know, it's unacceptable from your point of view. If you have a competitor, you have to feel you're doing more than them. So if Wilkinson is there, you know the probably reality and truth of it is he was probably doing a double session. He probably did one at 7:30, and then he probably went again at 6:30. I would say that was, from what I experienced in 01, that is highly likely, because he loves to kick, has a great routine, and he just loves to kick. But yeah, from my point of view, that's why it was so great just to accelerate getting that at such a young age and being able to apply it then for the rest of your career. But I think what's crucial for any young sports person, I think, is the fact just about what reps in the bank mean. It means, I suppose, like years 18 to probably 24 are so crucial in improving your skill levels. And then, you know, I think it's like the golf as well. We changed our swinging in rugby, and I changed my kicking, tried to go to a power technique as opposed to a timing technique. And then essentially you just, I suppose, you find peace with yourself and you decide on what works for you, and then you apply it. But after a while it becomes ingrained in you, and you're able to kind of resource it when the most I suppose big pressure moments come. And that's what makes it so, I suppose, enjoyable, because it's very selfish in the fact that it's you and 80,000 people watching you, and this is your moment, and this is what you train for, and you kind of go bring it on. But at the start you're kind of quivering.
I do wonder, obviously Johnny Wilkinson ended up having pretty horrific injury problems. Was any of that to do with overtraining and the fact that, like, he was doing double sessions when maybe, knowing everything we know now about sports science, somebody should have sat him down and said, you're going to have a much longer career, you'll be able to do more if you do less now?
Well, that's the benefit of hindsight too, Ger, isn't it? And the fact, as you say, the advances in sports medicine and everything like that. But especially the way he kicks, I think, and a lot of the way they kick with the snaps, you know, sometimes they warm up and it's fixed, and it's big in New Zealand as well. I think with Mick Byrne and with Dan Carter and these kind of guys, a lot of it is very fixed in the fact that your kicking foot is planted and you're losing all of the kicking leg to get the strike right, which I wouldn't be a fan of, because for me it's a full body movement for kicking. I think when you can actually just push through the ball. But yeah, you know, I think someone like Johnny Wilkinson would have, and there was times when my quad was hanging off me, and basically it was just, you go down to, we were lucky in the fact that we had a brilliant masseur in Cork who basically like just spent his day getting knots out of my quad, because it just had overkicked, but it was so painful, but you just loved it. That was your thrill. Because
we've been talking a good bit about this in the wake of Luke Keaney, the former Donegal footballer, who came into us.
Yeah.
Bad hips.
I saw that.
And so, like, if you were coaching you now, right, knowing everything you know, would you have told yourself, if you had a 21-year-old who was the new Ronan O'Gara coming through, would you be warning him, like, you got to do a certain amount to make sure that you're confident and you've got the reps in, but you can't do too much to the point where your quad is hanging off and we need a bit of miracle hands?
Yeah. It's such a great subject, because it was just so raw and natural in my time. There was no GPSs and the fact of kicking at the start, and there was no one measuring your reps. But like, I remember doing a lot of pre-season training in the summer with Munster and we ran, but it wasn't measured in that regard. But then at night time, I just loved to go kicking. But that wouldn't be allowed anymore, because you'd be doing way over the kind of mileage and the clock that was required. But I suppose then, from a sporting point of view, you kind of encourage, the advice I give to younger players now is, when you're having tough times in rugby or bad games or bad moments in games, what do you resort to? You need to have one aspect of your game that's really strong. And for me, I think that was probably going back to the spiral kick and being able to, you know what I mean, torpedo that ball to wherever, usually wherever I wanted it to go, and that was what I could draw on when real pressure hit me. But yeah, I suppose the advances in that regard have been huge, Jordan. It's been fascinating listening to, I suppose, all the debates on this program from other sports people about their injury and their injury profile. And Dennis Leamy is another example of the hips as well. But I don't think for babies of that generation that there was checks done on them, because he had degenerative, I think, what's that? What's the medical term?
The labrum.
But he was born with the problem as opposed to developed from overtraining.
Born, exactly, and it wasn't diagnosed, I think, in the hospital in Tipperary at the time. And I think if you were aware of it at a younger age, it could have been done. But essentially, he has arthritic hips is the word I was looking for, and degenerative, and essentially everything was done, with the best of medical power at that stage to try and correct him. But I think it was an issue from birth, and you look at, I suppose, nowadays with the medicals of people, all of that is kind of front-footed, and people have a good opportunity of knowing their body so much better. And there was examples of athletes from my team with Jamie Heaslip and with Donnacha O'Callaghan, like their body is their business, and they invested in their body, and it was very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is weird how some people just win the genetic lottery and are going to be grand, and then others can do the exact same training and the exact same numbers of reps, and their body is incapable of doing it. And look,
yeah, because it was I was discussing it last night just with a few of the players coming home on the bus, just about you have Semi Radradra, the Fijian who's playing with Bordeaux, and he signed with Bristol, obviously, but like a lot of the guys in my team are going, well, imagine if you're Radradra, you're over 2 meters tall, you're in 100 kg, you can run the 100 meters in about 10.3 seconds. But it's like the guys that are just born like that and can play, what a talent to have, and they make the game look easy. But as you say, there's a reason it is easy for them, because they're genetically blessed.
Yeah. A quick word about the Interpros, and probably didn't get a chance to watch too many of them.
No, I did. I actually saw the full Leinster-Ulster game, watched it in its entirety.
Yeah. We were chatting about it. I was saying, like, pretty exciting, lots of tries. That crossfield kick try is one of the great things that you're going to see all year. And Dave brought up the fairly brilliant concern that there are some lads here who are kind of sub-academy who are playing in this game, and it's not really that fair on them to be pitching them in against the seasoned internationals, that there's just a little bit of imbalance. In their careers, they're probably not even getting paid properly just yet, and here they are being asked to represent one of our provinces in one of the biggest games, essentially one of the biggest games of the season, or supposed to be.
For playing for Ulster, is it?
Yeah, well, there would have been a couple, like Ethan McElroy, for example, who came on for Rob Little.
Yeah, I saw.
He was playing Ulster Senior Schools Cup Rugby in March of this year, and it's a huge ask for someone like him to be coming up against the likes of a Max Deegan or a Josh van der Fleer, a Scott Fardy, for example. Is it? I could be wrong. That's where we're looking for your point of view on it. Maybe it's a great thing for them, but these guys aren't being paid much, and they're up against grizzled, gnarled World Cup final playing lock forwards like Scott Fardy.
Yeah, it is a great point. Another great point, I suppose, the fact is that, well, essentially, those games, for me, what the Irish model looks like now is you get ready for European Cup and you get ready for your test players. The Pro14 without the relegation, it seems a little bit surreal that you have a game in the worst conditions of the year, and you have one team scoring 50 points and another team scoring 40 points. I don't think the Irish mentality knows about what relegation or what, the English Premiership or the French Top 14. They're two dogs of a league, but two brilliant competitions to be involved in, because every game matters. In that competition, all the people will say the games matters, but for me, they don't matter. You prepare your team for European rugby and you prepare your teams for your test team, and everyone else fills in around those games then.
Is it damaging to the brand? Like, I understand from several point of views, there's mitigating factors this time around. It's on the back of a World Cup, which is only finished, 10 weeks ago, if even that, 6 weeks ago. You've got 4 Champions Cup rounds that have been crammed into a much smaller space on the calendar because of the World Cup, and then the player welfare kicks in, and you can understand Dan McFarlane trying to utilise his resources as best he can, because he's got Connacht and Munster at home in the next 10 days. He's up against probably the best club team in the world, or certainly the best club team in Europe, in Leinster, away from home. He's going to pick his team
in Europe,
right. I corrected that myself. But you can understand why he's picking the team he picked. But, you know, 14,000 people turn up at the RDS to see Ulster's second string, if even Ulster's second string. It's a really difficult balancing act. But they love it.
The supporters love it. Yeah, I get the balancing act, but I think the big point from people outside of Ireland is that it's not going to be a real league unless you have relegation. Like, what are the teams playing for? They're playing, one team is playing to win it. Few teams are playing to win it, but like, how many realistic winners are there? There's Leinster, there's Munster, and there's potentially
Glasgow, maybe
on a good day.
Yeah, it's a big issue. It is a big issue. Like, I watch the Premiership quite a lot, and at times the quality is not there. And we saw what happened with Northampton's first team.
But the quality is there, I think, isn't there for a reason, because it's so result dominated.
Well, the depth isn't as great, is it, Ronan? Like, no, you scratch below the surface in these squads, and there's no depth.
Either in France, but like, you can't pick your games in England or France. It's just a constant grind.
Yeah, well, the point I was going to make is that every game is huge.
Yes.
And it's not only for the players, but for the supporters as well. It feels
for the
like
town,
a huge
I suppose,
deal
as well, isn't it? You can see that with people like, especially in the top 14, when teams like Brive or Cast or people like that, if there's any threat of potential relegation, it kills the mood of the town, it kills the economy of that town as well. But maybe I've drifted off subject, but
you haven't really. Like, you'd mentioned places like Brive. I'm thinking Gloucester, Northampton, Exeter, Bath, rugby towns,
yes,
in which the Premiership club is the centre of everything. And
exactly.
The prospect of playing in the English Championship, like the French situation you're discussing, it's unthinkable.
Yeah, it is.
And we just don't have that.
Absolutely. Well, no, and you won't have it in the current format. It just won't ever happen like that. It's the strength of the Irish, I suppose, game is that it's so good at getting itself ready for a European Cup, and it's so good at preparing players for the national team. And that's exactly as you said, people coming at the weekend, we're looking at who potentially could play for Ireland or who could play a Champions Cup in the next few weeks for these both of these two teams. But in terms of winning the Pro14 title, I think there is a fair bit of pride in the consistency of performance associated with Leinster or Munster. But other than that, for me, it's a very different mindset.
Last question then. Would you like to see a Premiership Pro14 merger with two divisions, first and second division?
Yeah, I think it would be brilliant. Yeah, or if you can get something on like with travel nowadays, during capacity to charter flights, you know what I mean, you could make a European league.
I think a European league along the lines of the NFL is the most obvious thing, where you could have French conferences, so you keep the local derbies. And
why would the Premiership or top 14 engage in that discussion?
For money, because they'll make loads more money from TV revenue.
They make a pile of money as things stand at the moment, where the European Cup is an afterthought for some of these clubs.
But so you get
CVC haven't entered in this though yet, haven't they? They might come in and
that's what's going to change it. They're going to put a load of money in, pay the clubs, have a European Super League, the same as the exact same model really as the NFL, when there won't be relegation, and everybody then can have a proper salary cap, and you can know that at the start of the year you're going to have this amount of money, and that's how it works.
The threat of relegation is what makes so many Premiership games interesting. I watch Exeter Leicester on Sunday.
No, Jared, that is so true. Definitely in France, it's such dog eat dog that relegation is it's a wonderful topic.
Right, we don't have time to get into it anymore, but okay. I actually think that the relegation sometimes makes the games be crap, where the teams get scared to take a risk.
Stakes are so high.
Yeah, they do, but what is the replacement for that?
Have no relegation. Have 32 teams, and everybody knows that that's it. You're not going to be relegated. So everybody has to then invest in the team, invest in the players. And you have to be creative, and you have to try and qualify for the playoffs.
No, but you eliminate fear straight away. Fear is such a great subject among sports people. The minute you eliminate that, it becomes very different.
Look at the NBA and the NFL.
Your point about if the threat of relegation is removed, yeah, you will see more creative players and far more open, but that'll only be for so long, I think.
Maybe you could have relegation. Maybe you could have a sub-tier of other teams who are ready or willing to make it. Happy Christmas, Ronan.
Yeah, cheers, lads. Good to chat. Thanks
Enjoy
again.
it.
See you there.
See you, Ron.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that there's loads of room there for a different European league to work. And actually, it has to go that direction. Or, sorry, it doesn't have to go that direction because vested interest will prevent it from going that direction. But it's clear as the nose on our face that we've got these three leagues, none of which are... But the Premiership isn't working. All the clubs...
It's not working in that...
All the clubs are broke, they're all losing money.
But there are other reasons for that.
But
they're getting huge amounts of money in revenue from their TV deals.
All of a sudden, they're getting a huge amount of money from CVC, who have bought a stake in the league. If that hadn't happened, if there hadn't been a venture capital equity injected into it, they're all, I think one of them is break even. All of the rest of them...
Well, Exeter were the only team in the Premiership last season to make a profit. But they're all private owners who are able to play this sort of fund, these sort of funds into the clubs.
Not forever.
Not forever, but unless you change the makeup of these clubs, it's the same with football. I mean, how many clubs are making a profit in football? But
in the Premier League, they all are now.
It's not an issue for these managers. But yeah, but they're making their money from the Premier League, Ger. The money these clubs make from the Premier League TV rights far outweighs what clubs are getting in the Champions League.
Sure, but sorry, you said that...
And that's the way it is in the rugby at the moment as well. Like, Ronan's right, you take away relegation. I watched that Leicester game. Leicester are second bottom, and they have Saracens chasing them down. And it's fascinating. Welford Road was heaving.
Yeah, it's fascinating this year because Saracens were deducted 25
points.
It's fascinating
every year because these clubs...
Mostly the relegation battles are rubbish.
They're not.
In the Premiership.
Newcastle and Worcester trying to avoid the drop last season was really interesting because every game is huge.
I don't know. I actually think that, I think that it's just a mindset, but that if there were 32 teams across Europe playing in the European League and you had local conferences, you'd still have all your local derbies, you'd have games that actually mattered for most of the season, and most teams have a chance of making the playoffs with 5 or 6 weeks left to go.
It'll lead to a whole pile of dead rubbers towards the end of the season, like we see in the NBA and the NFL every year.
It will, but so what? Those clubs then can be guaranteed to be profitable and to make money, and at that point they'll be able to invest in...
To what damage to the product, though?
The product will get better. The product will get much better.
I don't see how it gets better by adding to the potential for mismatches, adding to the potential for dead rubbers.
Are those slogfests between those two mediocre teams at the bottom of the league actually any good?
They're not always slogfests.
But the majority of those games are... I think we're romanticising relegation battles between crap teams on the basis that that's all we've ever known. And if we didn't know that, we'd be like, why are we sending this club down?
It's not all we've ever known. We've been watching it in Celtic League Rugby for the last 15 years. And those teams play really well in playoffs and produce great rugby and produce great players who have their minutes managed. And it's been the Irish teams.
It's been clearly
the Irish teams, not the Scots, the Welsh, or the Italians.
Well, the Welsh are getting there, and the Scots and the Italians are getting there.
Look at the Welsh regions; they're in tatters.
That's a different issue. That's not on the basis of the... that's on the chronic mismanagement at central level of Welsh rugby. And actually, they're getting better because they're starting to bring more players back. They've realised that they need to bring more players back to those teams. I don't think the absence of relegation has caused Scarlets.
From the Welsh point of view, it's a financial thing. And a European league would probably help the Welsh sides more.
Fix everything. It would fix everything.
No, it would absolutely not fix everything.
It would absolutely fix
everything.
That
cannot be the final word on this debate. It would not fix everything.
907.